Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is, was it Friday, January 24th, 2025. Only a couple of days until one of my favourite days of the year, Australia Day. We love Australia Day. Love celebrating being Australian and in this unbelievable country that we live in. All the political bullshit aside, I'm not interested in that. They can all squabble amongst themselves. For me, I know the day probably has different meanings, I get that, but for me, I love the day and I love the fact that we celebrate, and we still are allowed to celebrate being Australian, and that's what I like to do. To just sit back, put my Aussie hat on and just enjoy and be grateful for this great country we live in, and just what a great country that it is. Without all the political bullshit, that is, by the way. All right, on to the boxing stuff. Now, interesting this week, we've all been talking about Keith Thurman coming out to fight Brock Jarvis, and we've spoken about, you know, the fights out of left field, and has Keith fallen that far that he's got to come out and fight Brock? Is Brock ready? And all these different things we've already talked about, so I won't go over that. But one thing that's sort of come out in the last sort of 24 hours, and I'm sure you've probably seen it as well, is that the rumours is that the sole purpose for Keith coming out was to have pretty much a tune-up against Brock Jarvis, and then get into a big fight with Tszyu later in the year. Now, Tim is scheduled to come back on April the 6th on a pay-per-view. I think it's going to be in Sydney. So he'll be back, and of course Keith and Brock are fighting March 12th. So it does make sense when you look at it that they've brought Keith out to maybe make him more familiar with the Australian audiences by having a big fight here in Australia against the fighter that is known. And then, although if you are a boxing fan, you know exactly who Keith Thurman is. But anyway, so that would be the end game of bringing him out to fight Brock, beat Brock, and then Tim gets his comeback win on April the 6th, and then they fight later in the year. So it does all sort of add up when you look at it that way. I actually thought, and I think I said the other day, that maybe the reason they were doing the Brock fight and having Michael Zarafa on the card as well was to cover their bases, so that if the Tim Zarafa fight didn't happen, that maybe they could match up Brock and Zarafa together in a big fight themselves later in the year. All these sorts of things being thrown around. But it does sort of beg the question, I suppose, if that is the case, does Brock Jarvis and Jeff Fennick know, or did they know before they signed up to the fight, the motives behind the scenes? I think they would have. I've got a feeling, there's probably a couple of theories, to be honest. One is that No Limit have sat down and thought, well, we want to build up a Tszyu fight for later in the year. Tim will fight whoever, so let's maybe bring him out. And who's the perfect opponent? All right, let's get Brock Jarvis. All right, and he's a name in Australia. Very, very winnable fight for Keith Thurman. He's inexperienced, he's Brock and everything else. So maybe they looked at that and, okay, perfect opponent. Maybe they've gone to Jeff Fennick and Brock Jarvis and spun it that, mate, we're going to back you, we're going to get a big fight, going to put you in with Thurman and really invest in you and everything else. And they've gone, yes. Or maybe they've gone to him actually and been honest with him and said, this is the other flip of the side of the coin, been honest with him and said, look, the end game here is Tszyu versus Thurman, but we want to get him a fight out here, so we're going to give you the opportunity to fight him. This is the state of play. You are 100% the B side in it. But, however, if you can beat or possibly get the win over Keith Thurman, then you will earn the shot at Tszyu and you can take his place. So maybe, look, there's a few different things, a few different balls in the air. It'd be interesting to see whether they did know or they didn't know, or if it is in fact true that they actually do want the Tszyu Thurman fight. I don't know, but lots of different scenarios being thrown around. But I think the scenario of Jeff and Brock knowing what No Limit want down the track, and just taking that opportunity and looking to get the win and then taking them earning the fight with Tim is probably the right call. I would hope so anyway. I would hope that No Limit would be transparent enough with them to let them know exactly what's happening. So, but it is again another twist on proceedings, because again I'm still trying to look. It's been a lot easier in the last couple of days, of course, getting your head around the fact that Brock Jarvis is fighting Keith Thurman, because again it's just the fight I never expected. But yeah, it does make a lot of sense now, doesn't it? And then throw Michael Zarafa in the mix as well. You know, if he wins, you know, again, is it Brock, or maybe he fights Keith Thurman if Keith Thurman beats Brock? I mean, there's so many different scenarios, isn't there? But I'll tell you what is like a really good thing is that it's great for Aussie boxing, that we've got all these little connotations being thrown around as far as possible matchups. Maybe throw Nikita Tszyu in there as well against Zarafa, or Brock Jarvis, or maybe even it's him versus Thurman. I don't know. But as I said, I think it's just great for Aussie boxing that we've got all this happening, and this is some eyeballs on our country. So let's keep an eye on what's going to happen out there. The other bit of news, enough of the Thurman and Brock Jarvis and Zarafa and Tszyu circus, whatever it is, but the David Benavides and David Morrell winner, now it's being rumoured that the winner will fight the winner of Bivol and Benavides later in the year. Now that is a matchup worth looking out for. What a fight that would be. However, no matter what the connotations are, what a fight that would be. And it's almost like Canelo is a bit of a distant memory for Morrell and Benavides, if that is the case. And what a fight that would be. Benavides and Morrell winner versus the Bivol and Benavides winner. Oh, I think that would be fantastic. And I don't know, it just seems over the years so far there's just so many potential fights that have been thrown around, or even signed already but being mooted for later in the year. I mean, it's for, what are we, the 24th? So much boxing news. I mean, it's just been a flood over that Christmas and New Year period, as it always is. Not much happening, but just in the last couple of weeks, it's just been, the floodgates have just been open, and there's so much going on, and which is good because we have plenty to talk about of a morning. But that is good news if that is the case. Look, I'm still to be convinced if Benavides wins, whether he will want another big fight like that, or he might retire. I don't know, but you would think, still being on a high, being undisputed champion, he might want that challenge as one last fight before he maybe exits the sport. But either way, I think it's the whole mix of those four is unbelievable. Now, what was the other one I did see the other day? Overnight, Teofimo Lopez. Now, apparently he's signed, or is about to sign, a 3-fight deal with Riyadh Season, the Saudis, in conjunction with No Limit, Top Rank. Bob Arum's had his say about it. And geez, he's a problem child, isn't he? He would just be the biggest pain in the ass, would Teofimo Lopez. Apparently they offered him the Subriel Matias fight for good money, good terms. He knocked it back, and he just sits on the sidelines and pot shots Bob and Top Rank and does everything except get in the ring and actually fight. But apparently, according to Bob, that Teofimo, or with Teofimo, they're going to sign a 3-fight deal. So I don't know who they want to get him in with. Maybe with Turkey involved and the Saudis involved, maybe they'll be able to pay him what he wants to be paid, because he was offered apparently 3.2, I think, to fight Subriel Matias, or he actually might have wanted 3.2 and was offered 2.8 or something like that and knocked it back. So again, one of those fighters that does far more talking than fighting, and it's just a shame, because guys like him and Gervonta Davis and these types of guys, they just sit on the shelf, and just so much talent, and they're fighting once every 12 to 18 months. I just one part of the sport that I just absolutely hate, and just a prima donna. Mate, just fight. You know, we can't all get what we want. You know, you've just got to keep active, and the big fights will come. And there is, of course, talk that Richardson Hitchens will be one of those opponents that he might fight as well. I don't know, maybe Liam Paro might be a chance as well if he can get a win. Who knows, maybe it's a rematch with our man George Kambosos as well. There's a lot of options out there for Teo, and I just think he's a phenomenal fighter. But again, just far too vocal and precious, I think, is Teofimo Lopez. Mate, just get in there and fight. That's all we want to see. Another one we want to get in there and see fight is Sebastian Fundora, and this has probably got to be the most comical thing I've seen. He beat Tszyu, of course, had the belts. was lined up to fight Errol Spence. That sort of sat on the sidelines. Then it was talked about he might fight Terence Crawford. That sort of fell away as well. He had a chance to fight Terence Crawford and wanted to sit out and wait for Spence. And then the Spence fight was going to be back on again, and now it's off again. And now, wait for it, he's going to fight a guy by the name of, I think I've got it right, Shawdale Booker. Yes, Shawdale Booker is his name. I have no idea who this guy is. I think he's 22-1 or something, but the only half reasonable fighter he's ever fought was Austin Ammo Williams, and he was blown out in 1 round. He is going to be the one that's going to fight Sebastian Fundora on March 29th, I think it is. So there you go. After all the pandering all year, all the talk about Spence and Crawford and everyone else, he's going to fight Shawdale Booker in defence of those belts. So that's what you get when you sit out and wait too long and don't strike while the iron's hot. He's become nothing, Sebastian Fundora, and you get the impression he'll just be that other champion over there while all the real 154-pounders fight each other. So, I don't know. We'll see. What was the other thing? Actually, I had something. I'll just quickly. Sometimes I write notes. I made a note yesterday. No, that was about it for that. Oh, the Oscar De La Hoya. The clapback is back. I love it. I was actually going to mention, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that I wonder if Turki Al Sheikh has pulled Oscar De La Hoya aside and said, look, you know, we're working with Eddie and some of these other people you always talk about. Maybe it's not a good idea to do the clapback Thursdays, and maybe just chill with it all, and maybe he's listened. But he's back for 2025, and it was a really good one. It was purely and solely aimed at Devon and Bill Haney, and I think it was one of his best ones. And I love the production that he puts into the whole thing. And this one was a excellent one to start 2025, and it's pretty much just laying the boots into Bill and Devon Haney. And look, what he said I thought was pretty correct. I know he probably goes overboard a little bit and puts a little bit of mayo on it and everything else, and probably sometimes neglects maybe him being a bit hypocritical himself. But he's pretty along the line of saying that what should have been a massive year for Devon Haney turned into a disaster. Of course, he was beaten by Ryan Garcia, but instead of getting back on the horse and working on the left hook, he sued Ryan Garcia for battery. And what else did he say? Well, Bill Haney, he said he's just a pimp, and literally a pimp apparently, or was literally a pimp. Just all these different. It was a really, really good one. But he's right. I mean, Devon Haney, what he should have done is just learn from it instead of spending the whole year in, suing Ryan Garcia and whinging and pissing and moaning and everything else about his state of play, and Bill Haney pretty much upsetting everybody with some of the shit that comes out of his mouth as well. He should have been in the gym working on things, maybe having a fight at the end of 2024. And really setting up that Ryan Garcia fight for the right reasons. And now, Oscar did say the only way he gets the rematch with Ryan Garcia, and it's been talked about for October, is that first of all the lawsuit gets dropped, and then he's got to beat Jose Ramirez, which is no easy task. I think he'll get the job done. No, make no mistake about that, but it won't be easy. I think Garcia beats Roller Ramiro quite comfortably, but that's the only way it happens. I still can't get over the fact that he sued Ryan Garcia for battery anyway. And Oscar did say to Jose Ramirez, be careful, don't hit him too hard because you might be next being sued for battery. But yeah, look, it is a shame. And I think he did say that in his advice. We did say that Bill Haney was the worst manager in boxing, and I'm not going to argue with it. I think he's really inhibited his son, and that's what Oscar said as well, is that he's just held back his son and done him no favours, and pretty much almost ruined his career. And his advice is to get away from him, and go with someone else if you want to save your career. And he's probably right. I don't think it's going to happen because Devon is very, very close to his dad, and sometimes loyalty comes in the way of common sense. Although Teofimo Lopez has done it with his dad, so maybe Devon can do it too. But so many big fights out there for Devon Haney as well, including maybe Teofimo Lopez himself. So he needs to make some hard decisions, does Devin Haney, and really focus on what's important, and not just this whole thing about having an undefeated record and all this bullshit. Yeah, I think he needs to. I agree with Oscar in that aspect. He needs to probably distance himself from his dad, maybe have him as an advisor or whatever might be, or better yet, just get rid of him entirely. So, anyway, but I thought it was a ripper clapback and a really good way to start the year, and is never short of a comment, is the Oscar. And it's interesting because as a fighter, he wasn't anything like that. He was actually very low key. Yeah, he had his moments at press conferences and that sort of stuff, but he's really found his inner self, hasn't he, as a promoter, as Oscar De La Hoya, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. And as long as he keeps to this sort of topic, I like it. Don't go down the old Eddie Hearn thing like he did, where he gets personal with people and brings out some skeletons in the closet or whatever, and makes accusations. We don't want that. Just clap back as the segment is, and have your say. I love it. So anyway, guys, that'll do it for this Friday. Not the most exciting one, I know, but hopefully over the next few days there'll be lots more fight announcements. That's a shot at you, George Kambosos. Come on, mate. It's been 2.5 weeks since you told me the announcement was coming, so let's get it out there, but I'm sure it won't be too far away. So guys, have a great Friday, and we will catch you tomorrow.